Mr. Basic here. Welcome to my new studio, in my new house, in my new town. And we're going to get right to it here, doing some techno with the DFAM. And then as people show up, if people show up, we're going to start doing some chat about synths and music production and whatnot. So here we go. Shall we start? Just relax, 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 just relax. Just relax. Just relax. Just relax. Just relax. Just relax. Mr. Basic, Just relax. Mr. Basic. Mr. Basic. Okay. Okay. Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Okay. Okay, okay. There you are. Hi, everybody. This may not be the best angle. Ooh, I got some autofocus going on there. Yeah, big time. Big time. All right, we'll have to turn off the autofocus on our settings. That'll definitely have to happen. So, besides being in a new place, one thing I want to start out by saying about moving from a bedroom studio to an attic studio like this. This isn't an attic, it's an upstairs. It's got an attic ceiling, I guess, because it's, I guess you'd say converted. So maybe that means it is an attic. I don't know. Whatever happened that way, it happened 100 years ago. So I would just say it's not much of an attic anymore. So, but one thing about this being a really old house that was meant for loggers originally, is that it's huge and thick. I mean, the walls are just so thick that from up here, from upstairs, nobody downstairs who's sleeping can hear anything. You can yell, I can yell, and nobody's going to hear me. So this is kind of ideal as opposed to, say, like a bedroom in a house that has rooms all around it, right? To kind of just have totally your own space that's just a studio. And not only about the sound, but just having something that's just a studio makes a difference. I'm not saying it's like superior in any way, but it makes for some differences in terms of functionality, in terms of how you work and stuff like that, in terms of psychology and emotional, well-being, and how it relates to your ability to get certain things done. I mean, when I say emotional well-being, I mean like morale toward the thing that you're trying to get done in particular. Just having this be it is really important and good. One thing that I have going on here is I've got two focuses. that are separate, a lot more separate than they were before, because I had an L-shaped thing going on before. I could always just turn my head and change my focus, and particularly always just watch more YouTube videos when I had a dull second. And that got to be a little bit time wasting because it never just took a minute, you know. So one thing about this is that I have my computer here. I have my PC here, and I have my big speakers and my audio interface here. I've also got this that could be my audio interface, but I just need a little bit of a longer cable to do it this way. So what I'm doing right now is I'm testing things out for the first time. Now, of course, I'm not surprised that nobody's here. The last time that I streamed at midnight, nobody was around in particular, when every other time that I've streamed, there's always been people. So basically that means anyone in North America is sleeping right now. And in the UK and whatnot, they probably haven't gotten up yet, or are just getting up if you get up early. Anyway, so one thing, see, I have this new webcam. So many things are new. I don't know where my synth kitty is, but she really loves to just sit right up here. That's her spot. I'm going to take the protective cover off of my webcam. And heck, while I'm at it, it's been so long, you could probably tell. I've had this for like a year and a half or more, maybe 2 years, this phone. And why don't I go ahead and just take that initial protective cover off for the first time ever. It's been starting to get ratty, a little bit too ratty at this point. So, so there we go. Brand new phone screen. Look at that. Look at that. Oh, and I bet you can see, it's kind of like a mirror there. You can see me. I'm doing something weird here. This is cool. Look at that. I might change my thumbnail and make it that after the fact. Isn't that cool? Anyway, yeah, so we'll have to really protect it and keep it nice for the little amount of time that I'm going to still have it, because it's not the best. I need a new battery too. Okay, so yeah. So new things, besides the new house and new place and all that. We've got here my second box from niceracks.com. Niceracks.com. This is an unsponsored video. They're just a nice little company. I believe they're here in the States, and they make wooden boxes that are particularly audio, not of the Eurorack variety, but for all manner of audio equipment. 19-inch, meaning 19 inches across, is the standard. And having the racks on the sides like that. So basically, and then I got this nice little panel, decorative panel too. They have many to choose from there. That's kind of a new thing. They didn't have that last year when I got my first one. I'm gonna need a third box pretty soon, actually, because as you can see, I have this DFAM, and there's not really much space in there next to it, and I already have things actually so to go in there as well. And so it's just a matter of getting another set of Eurorack rails so this can be a Eurorack box. And that's kind of like my thing. And it's not just like a oops, oh, that's what I thought I was supposed to do sort of thing. It's very, very deliberate that I'm using audio boxes instead of Eurorack boxes for my Eurorack. Yeah, I definitely have considered all options that way. And I think I might just leave it up to you for now to wonder to yourself or think you might understand why a person might want to do that. I mean, aesthetics wise, in the first place, it's really nice to start out with. A few things have happened that have really sparked my interest. One, the Moog. Well, a few months back, the Moog grandmother had come out, and or was it at the end of last year? I don't know. Either way. Either way, it ends up being a few months back, and that was cool. And it's monophonic synth, right? Monosynth, classic in every way with a spring reverb. But this one, the matriarch that just came out, is all that with all the colors of the grandmother, but with also a little bit of splash of purple added on this one. And I would say that adds to it quite nicely, actually, in terms of if you already like the style. And instead of the spring reverb, it has a ping pong delay, classic bucket brigade chips, bucket brigade delay. And that's really nice. And I would even say that's almost more useful to have than the reverb because if you set it right, can act as a reverb, and it can act as as the delay that it's doing, and kind of sound like a reverb as well at the same time because of just how it resonates and reverberates. But the bucket brigade as a delay, not so much as other delays, because it's more like a repeat on a timing basis. It's like it keeps on repeating it, and it could repeat something, depending on the feedback, at the same volume just every time, instead of decaying at all, stuff like that. And I believe it can do stuff like that, and it's got. But not only that, it's not a monosynth. It's got 4 voices. It's a 4-voice polysynth, and they use the term even on, written on the device, paraphonic. They have paraphonic mode that you can put it in, so that they can all be using their own signal path, each of the voices throughout the synth, and that's pretty cool. And then you've got either way you look at it, you've got your 4-voice polyphony on it. And that's something that I've always really liked and thought was cool and thought was great to have in a synthesizer, especially for someone like me who was a beginner a couple of years ago. This is the same thing. It splits its voice into being able to play 4 notes of it at a time. So to make for 4-voice polyphony, and I really like that. Not only that, I think the great synth of this year, or of this last year, is the reissue of the Korg Minilog, the Minilog XD. And that's also the same thing, 4-voice. So I think it's a good number, because when you're making a chord, when you want to make chords, it works. It doesn't work so much for a piano player wanting to play a piano part, or, wanting to play, a keyboard to play multi-timbral synths. That's a different sort of thing. So I wouldn't actually want to compare that, would I? So, as a thing, 4 voices is great to have, I guess, is what I've been trying to say here. Something I like a lot. 1 voice is good to have as well. And I found that out by working with both polyphony and monosynths, is that working with 1 note at a time is kind of nice. It's nice to have chords, but the thing is, there's something about chords and music theory and the idea of music as you're making it, as you're listening to it, thinking about it in any way that you're experiencing it. Something about chords that takes over and becomes the thing that's going on. And chord progressions in general, scales, chord progressions, movement through those scales. It locks what you're doing into being influenced by that very, very much. And a lot of times I feel too much. So I guess what I'm saying about chords, and I'll say this a lot more in other live streams in other ways, because it's just a theme throughout in how I think about music right now and nowadays, is that chords and chord progressions dominate the value of a song when they're a part of it. So no matter how cool you are, no matter how good you are, if you come out with a song and it's really amazing and cool, and it has great chord progressions, then basically, no matter what, you're locked into the fact that throughout history, people have loved and adored and been moved by songs because of that having that same chord progression already, and that deep down that that's the thing that's doing it. And so it has a lot less to do with you. And so you go like, oh, that's my song. Well, in the back of your head, even as you're creating it, you're like, well, yeah, sure. But, these chord progressions are really going to make the value of it already. So it's just kind of like the choice of your chord progressions almost feels kind of cheap to me somehow. Although I do it a lot, but I value it and appreciate it and accept it because of the just sheer satisfaction that I get out of chord progressions. Anyway, it has nothing to do with DFAM or Techno that I was doing tonight. I just wanted to start out, kind of testing my equipment that way. I did a little ambient piece this last week, and I wanted to try and see whether DFAM did Techno well or whether it didn't. And I think, yeah. Now, obviously, that's not just the DFAM. I've got Platts running things. I've got Platts running the hi-hats, and that other stuff. Which actually, by changing the model on this third Platts, you can see that it's got this green flashing light and a red light, and that means it's going in between. See, as you can see. I'll turn it up. That's not see how it's cycling through the different sounds just all by itself. Hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, snare, hi-hat, and all the stuff in between. It's still doing modal. because of where my DFAM knobs are set. But anyway, I can, and obviously I can change the pitch. I think that's what it was at. Any case, I like it. Can I do IDM? No, I can do SDM. Yeah, I do SDM instead. Stupid dance music. It's nice to see you here, Jelly Duck. Yeah. It's cool. It's cool that you're up or up already or whatever. Aphex Twin style, yeah, because it's so experimental. No, I'm just joking. I'm just being self-detrimental there. But no, for real though. No, I think it's really cool. I think it's really cool that the DFAM can actually do actual techno. It's not just it's just, this really raw. It's raw, so it can do techno more than house, I guess. Well, but it's house anyway. It's house too, but still. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So yeah, doing a midnight stream. This is my first live stream in my new house, and I was just talking about the matriarch, the Moog matriarch. Yeah, little splash of purple is what everybody was asking for, and they got it, and that's cool. So, and it's $19.99, $2,000 US. It's not for me. I could paint it black, and it'd be more for me, but no. Actually, like the sub 37 is less than that, and I know it's a monosynth and stuff, but yeah, I don't need that either. I think I've already gone through the whole idea of what I'm planning to be getting in the next couple of years. If it gets to that way, yeah. No, $19.99, $20, yeah. For the matriarch. So along the same lines, the Moog. Wait, was it Septivox? Septivox? Or am I thinking of something else, of the name of something else now? But the Moog, Moog Fest just happened, and they just made the new Moog vocoder in the same form factor size and everything as this DFAM and Mother 32 and the subharmonicon and all those. So and it's a vocoder, and what it is it has these knobs on the top like this. But you know how the DFAM has these little knobs down here? Well, it's kind of like that, only it has the knobs at the top, but the vocoder has faders all across. It has 10 faders, and what those sliders, and what those are is it's a fixed filter bank. Basically, it's just low frequencies to high frequencies, and you can turn them up and down, kind of like on an old organ, or like a draw bar organ sort of thing, or on a fixed filter bank that does that. Anyway, and so there's a lot you can do with it. And one of those things is vocode, because you can plug the microphone into it, do it that way, and it's very raw and simple, like straightforward classic way of vocoding. It's nothing like really complex in the vocoding area, but like the Waldorf. Yeah, no, the only Moog synth I have is the DFAM, but I do plan on getting a Minotaur soon, sometime. I started a couple years ago, just 2 years ago, 2017, March 2017. Yeah. Bleh. So yeah, I like stuff I like Moog stuff. I've always liked that sort of aesthetic, and so it's like I like everything else. I like all the other synths in the world and stuff like that, and all the modules out there that are in Eurorack. But the fact is, I wish they were all black face plates with the silver knobs and big silver knobs. I wish they all had bigger knobs, still, even though they take up more space. It's just kind of like, that's my thing. And so I've got all these mutable instruments modules, the three Plats modules and the Clouds modules. That's mutable instruments, but this is a DIY build from somebody who does them, different styles of it. And so I was really lucky that way. And yeah, and I'm going to keep on being lucky that way. I think that's cool. But yeah, so I'm going to get a Minotaur. I'm not into the Siren, though, because I wanted a Minotaur originally to be my one bass synth, instead of this eventually, and to pass that on to somebody else, and to be using a different key bed after a while. Also, black with silver knobs that's coming up soon is I'm going to be getting the stylophone Generate here, but we just received another email, and they're down to the end of June now. They keep pressing it back a few months, a couple months at a time, because they have more work to do, but that's totally fine with me. It should be fine for all of us, because we want them to get it right and get it perfect before they send it out and it have bugs or something like that. We'd rather it be cool before they start sending it out. You have a stylophone beatbox? That's awesome. I love that. I like that. It's just one of the coolest inventions, and it's like, oh wow, why didn't other people go that route? Well, I guess it just seems like there's like one or two or three options for electronic drum sort of things like that but nothing quite like that. Nothing like the stylophone beatbox. Even things by Alesis and Korg and Pearl don't do that in the same way. Yeah. And I just love the style of it, how it's all round and stuff like that. There's somebody, either Marina Dangerfield or Mariana Dangerfield. Shoot. If you go Dangerfield and then stylophone, I bet search that way. I bet you'll find her, and she is a stylophone player that I've always subscribed to on YouTube for the last like year and a half. And she even got together with other people, other stylophone enthusiasts, and did ensembles and stuff, which is pretty cool. Yeah. Yeah, so the Generate is the new one that's coming out. I'll be getting that because it's pretty much the same thing. It's the same style. It's got the silver cap knobs and the blackness to it, but also that same sort of Japanese aesthetic that brings me to the wood and the black and things like that are a lot like the lacquerware and whatnot, is because is what I was going to say is on the stylophone Generate is the ribbon controller it's a gold ribbon controller. It's this gold plate that goes across like that, and it's just like that's that's just the best. Like I'm almost thinking like you could really like minimalize and go down to having like if it ends up being a good enough synth, I'm saying it would be probably good to have two as control surfaces. Yeah. And they can do all the CV to go out to other things too and molt out to other things while you're playing the actual stylophone as well. Just like, like I do with this, the Mini Brute and anything else. Yeah. Never heard of what? Oh, you have different music apps on iOS? Yeah, I wish that I had iOS. Have you tried Endless yet? By Tim Exile has done that. He used to have do the the Zoquencer thing with the Behringer, a bunch of knobs. I used to really look at that because I kind of wanted to, I always wanted something with a bunch of knobs as a MIDI controller to control my DAW when I was in the DAW, to control all the Ableton devices and stuff. But I ended up getting the Launch Control XL, and that really worked well. And I kind of stopped looking after that. But it's cool that he did it with that. But I think a lot of people were doing the same thing as him, and he ended up getting a lot of fame, whereas other people were just kind of like ignored. And then people are like, oh yeah, Tim XL, he just like pioneered this, just like they do, like they always do that with like Brian Eno. It's like Brian Eno, created ambient music. What the heck are you talking about? No. It's like the narrative turns into, this guy's a legend. I think he's great, and what he's doing is great, and is actually like he's why he's really great is that is for what he's done now with this new thing with Endless, is started up this company that's created this app that can do that, and I think that is such an amazing undertaking, and I can't even imagine doing something like that myself. Elastic Drums and Sector. Interesting. Yeah. I don't have any iOS anything because I'm Android, and yeah, there's nothing music on Android. Could I get the Korg stuff? No, wait, that's the 3DS. That's the DS, Korg DS. That's what I'm thinking of. I don't know. Well, I could do GarageBand, and there's a Reason Android version of Reason now. I think there's a mobile version. Yeah, I would check that out. Totally. Yeah, I am not against stuff like that. I wish I could do VCV rack on my phone wherever I go, because I love, working on patches, and when I'm out, I'm like, oh man, I wish I could keep working on that while I have a break, But I have nothing on my phone, kind of for on purpose. Oh, FL Studio on Android, yeah. I bet, yeah, no, I know there's like a Launchpad sort of thing too, not like Ableton Live, but just like a sort of like Launchpad Arcade or something like that. Ableton Arcade or something like that. Yeah. So, okay, so along the lines of the vocoder, I was talking about the vocoder by Moog that was that they made. That was their workshop thing that they made at Moog Fest this year. So, and Loopop has a good video about that already, and other people do as well. A couple other people have been talking about it, and but along those lines, when we talk about vocoders, there's another thing that's been going around ever since TSR, the Tome and Synth Reactor event that went on. Ever since then, and before then, we've been talking about the Behringer VC340 or VC330, I think they're calling it, or something like that. Is the clone of the old one, the Roland one. So, yeah, it looks really good. But I kind of realized since I found out about the Waldorf STVC, the Waldorf vocoder slash string synth with a full keyboard and everything that's out now. I think it's out now. I think it's been shipped now. I think it was last year that they were putting it out. You don't hear much about it, but of course you don't hear that much about Waldorf in the first place because they're a small company actually still. But Korg distributes Waldorf in the United States. But anyway, online you can always get anything from around the world. But yeah, I'm using the original Mini Brute. After the Mini Brute 2 and the 2S came out, I had decided that what I wanted was still the original Mini Brute. Because what I wanted was a key bed for my System 1 and anything else for my whole system. It's just a key bed for my system. Notice how it's doing four note polyphony. So it's actually my System 1 sound that's coming out of this. My Mini Brute, do I have it hooked up? I have it hooked. Yeah, I have it hooked up, but I have it turned all the way down. The Mini Brute part, because well, unless I've got it set to something specific, it's not going to make anything sound that great. And I don't have it as a part of what was going on. Should make more ambient sound. Yeah, well, in general, I don't know if you're talking about in general, but this is my voice that I was just putting some delay and reverb on here and then recorded it just before I started going live, along with this other stuff. And this, I didn't even use this. Anyway, but yeah, my last video was an ambient, which is the only video that I've done so far besides this right now here in the new house was an ambient piece. And I had the camera sitting, pretty much close to where it is right now. So, but you still can't see my thing up here on the wall, on the ceiling. It's actually, it's like a triangle wave. See? But it's a branch. Isn't that cool? It's like a wave, but it's a branch. I think I set it up quite nicely there. But yeah. And I've got a makeshift curtain going on right now before I get curtains. We're just unpacking everything slowly but surely. What was I talking about? Okay, so vocoders. So I'm not interested in the Moog vocoder because it's a little bit simple for a vocoder, and I wanted a vocoder that could do a little bit something a little bit more refined, I guess. Just in this case. Otherwise, I like the whole aesthetic of the things that are coming out, especially in that form factor of the DFAM and whatnot for Moog. I think that above all synthesizers, the DFAM epitomizes what a synthesizer started out as, and can become, and I mean, from the ground up sort of thing with that 8-step sequencer with the, and but as far as what it is, though, it's not so simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's not so, classic, because what it is it's two oscillators that that rip against each other based on one being frequency modulated by the other, and that's what's generally happening, like all the time, is just the frequency modulation between the two oscillators there. It just makes the And the only reason it becomes percussive is because you put it into a frequency range, the whole thing into a frequency range that doesn't have the notes, and take the envelopes down to, the decay down to just being a instead of a. Otherwise, it has all sorts of harmonics. Like here, I'll show you. I will show you. This is with the decay all the way up. You're just opening up the envelopes, and this is what's actually going on. Turn the noise up. That's just turning the velocity knobs up and down. No, not really. I'm not. I mean, I'm familiar with Kraftwerk. I familiarized myself with them later in life, but no, I'm not influenced by any. Not like Kraftwerk. I can't think of any songs that they've done. It's just that when you play these instruments, that's kind of like, yeah, anytime you play these instruments, that's kind of what goes on. Or minimally anyway. You're not all worried about trying to sound like something else, like trying to sound like a certain kind of genre of music and then using them to simulate that, to do what they like to do then. But see, this is what I'm talking about. This is why I called it techno, because it's kind of like cold metallic. And I tried chords, but it seemed to try to turn it into something else. You know, it's like they could turn it into like an EDM song by adding some kind of melody or, you know, notes that don't go into some kind of infinite pitch craziness. If I didn't do that, then it just wouldn't work. Well, so that's why I said attached to something that's just more atmospheric. One thing I've been really liking, well, it would be intelligent. I would, the circuit, I got the circuit back here, the Novation circuit, or if I could use that or any way to add glitch, I would say intelligent dance needs like, you know, in sync, in sequence, on grid glitch sort of thing, you know, on grid randomization, but just organized enough to where the brain is like, that's organized. Oh, that's not just random, you know, and find that balance between random and organized with the, you know, say the hi-hats and where the hi-hats end up and stuff like that. Then I would say I'd be doing intelligent dance music, but that's just me and my own. I mean, I have no experience with defining genres, really. I would say I'm obviously not an expert. I just go with like my idea of, oh, what do I think of intelligent? What would that mean? I have some issues with some of the genres and thinking that their names don't make sense and whatnot. And I've had an issue with the C. I used to call everything techno, so I used to be called everything techno. And so this is me kind of like showing that I am not calling everything techno anymore. So just a drone, that makes it techno and not house, because house is meant to like please you, you know. This is an atmosphere. Mineral. It's mineral. I'm so mineral. Perhaps. What do you mean perhaps? No. I am making an album. I'm in the process of making a few albums, but don't hold your breath, because we're talking maybe next year for starting to schedule releases and stuff. I did just get a Bandcamp. I have I'm not saying what it is yet, but I have a domain and I have a Bandcamp and I have a Patreon that I haven't opened up yet to the public to be a Patreon. And that's the thing, is I won't do that for a while. I've scheduled all these things to happen later within the next year or two. But I'm not going to do any kind of music like that. That was an experiment. But what I like is house music. I like what's called progressive house. And see, that's another thing. Like, I don't like a genre trying to call itself progressive. It's troublesome to call a genre progressive. It just is. And you can think for yourself, I guess, why. But like, no, definitely not Twitter. But like, what it means is basically you drag things out more. You drag out the build up, possibly to half the song, and don't do the drop until maybe half the song is into it, and less drops, drag things out. That's the sort of idiot's version of like, well, what makes it progressive? Well, it doesn't make it progressive, but just these ideas that you're tired of certain things in dance music and you want it to be more, but only in certain ways does it make it progressive house, traditionally. Yeah, and like progressive rock, it's like, okay, you could say Rush is progressive rock because you have to, because that's what they define progressive. Well, okay, but really, how like they're not progressive in a lot of the ways that other ways that I'm thinking of, that other rock bands are actually progressive in all these other ways that they're not. And so it's like, okay, progressive is kind of the bad word that way, because they are progressive in a lot of ways, right? But then not if I'm someone who has a different idea of what I like or what I think is progressing to what, But anyway, that was a side note. But I think you'd call it disco house or new disco. What I'm really liking the best is an artist called Dinka. And Dinka does house with a good amount of swing. See, I'm giving it away already, but it's kind of like, happy, bouncy, but it's not like rigid, like it's more like it's got some swing, and just like disco has got its swing, and it's got like a disco swing, and kind of, yeah. Cool. Trance is cool. I like, obviously I like classic trance because I'm a child of the 80s. I was a child in the 80s. I was a teenager in the 90s. So I do like the trance of the 90s. But, that's a little different. And I think psytrance is a little much for me nowadays. I might have liked it in the past when I liked things like, I still like happy hardcore, but I'm not going to listen to it all the time. But like, anyway, so the albums I'm going to put out is, one album I'm going to put out is going to be a house album, but it's a certain kind of house. It's not minimal. If you want to know what kind of music I'm going to try to be putting out, it's going to be like my favorite artist, who's Dinka. And it's kind of like between house music and sort of like relaxing elevator or soundtrack music. What if I'm listening to jungle music? Yeah, I like jungle, drum and bass. But I like breaks. I like having breaks from that sort of like, from the high BPM. When you're doing the high BPM, I like the rhythm to just cut out for the rhythm to cut out and to keep cutting out and coming back in and cutting out and coming back in. Because if it just keeps going, I can't handle it for like more than 2 minutes. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm in Washington State, and I'm from all around Washington. I was born in California, but I've basically lived all around Washington all my life. And it's great here. And yeah. Where are you from, Jelly Deck 100? Yeah, it's interesting. It's got to be the middle of the night. Oh, Kuwait. Okay, it's not the middle of the night. It's actually the morning, right? Kind of like in the morning. Yeah, cool. But you're not there right now, are you? Do they have... You can get some good internet somehow over there? How long have I been streaming? All right, I've been streaming for an hour, at least. Okay, Jelly Deck 100, you have a music project. It's called Code Alt Q. Okay, I'm definitely going to check out. I am already your subscriber, I know. But I'm pretty sure. But yeah, I'll go ahead and check that out if you're doing anything with it on YouTube. You asked me about Twitter or whatever. What I'm gonna do for the next couple years is start putting out music on Bandcamp as free downloads and not charge for music. And I might never charge for music, like for actual songs, for tracks. But I might also do the Spotify through DistroKid. And if I do that, I would do that if I got a good house music workflow going, or if I had a good sort of lo-fi hip-hop workflow going where I could pump those out as well, or both. But as far as my soundscapes, I would have those on Bandcamp to download as well, ambient stuff. Ambient soundscapes and sound design stuff I would put on Bandcamp to download as well, for anyone who wanted to do that. And that's pretty much how I would do that. And I wouldn't bother with being on any other social media to do that, or be on SoundCloud or anything like that. Cool. Lo-fi hip hop. I've noticed that my circuit is really good at that. The circuit is just... That's the thing, is it's amazing, especially at two things, and that's house music and boom bap, four to the floor or boom bap stuff. It's good for lo-fi hip hop, and especially with the sounds I have on there with the Team Novation sounds, because there is a good classic electric piano sound that's like a Rhodes sort of sound. I'm not sure which of the four dudes, whether it was Enrique or Calc or someone else that made it, but that's one that I used for all my Januaries. All my Januaries from scratch jams. Most of them were with that patch and some other nice bass patches on there, and they just had enough kicks and claps and hi-hats and stuff to work with. Outsider house. Yeah. I like a lot of lo-fi stuff because the term lo-fi is connected to a lot of stuff that I like, but but I don't actually, particularly care for the lo-fi aspect of lo-fi genres. I don't really care about that. I don't care about having like that that noisy click or crunch or whatever in the back, or that vinyl sounding thing in the background. I'd rather like use that as a drum sound or something like that instead of drums, for the actual rhythm of the song or something like that, and be out of the box that way instead of just like, trying to recreate bad audio. But that said, I listen to lo-fi hip hop stations all the time, and I don't mind it. Actually, I don't mind it at all. I just don't think it's necessary to do the making it lo-fi part. Like, you can saturate and do stuff like that, and that's cool. And use your different amps or amp emulations and whatnot. But and I even like wah and flutter and stuff, and that I consider a sort of modulation. But to try to make it sound not as good, that's not something we need nowadays, because especially when everybody's listening to things on their phones and bad earphones and bad earbuds and bad headphones and bad speakers and everybody. And so sound is already bad enough already. And I'm so glad for having headphones like these, the Bear Dynamics, because it just changed the world for me. It's just like I am afforded a pleasure that most people just aren't, because they won't for themselves. They won't make that a thing. Like my headphones, how I listen to music, and I never have all my life until I started doing this audio stuff. But Palm Bowman. Okay, I'll write that down. Palm Bowman. Okay. There's a few things I wanted to mention before I take off tonight. Is that I have this sort of ongoing thing, the sequencer wars, because I'm looking for a main sequencer for my whole big machine that's going to be, in the end, that's going to be a bit larger than this, a larger system. And to control it, I need a larger sequencer that can control it all, a brain, so to speak. And I've always been up in the air about whether that's going to be the Octatrack, or whether it's going to be, the MPC Live, something like that. The Akai Force. Originally, I had considered Ableton Live and Launchpad and Launch Control XL, which I started out my channel doing a couple of years ago. But okay, so more recently, I had already decided that out of everything, the thing for me was the Polyend Sec, or Polyend Seek. I call it the Polyend Sec, along with the Polyend Poly, which is a module that goes MIDI to CV with 8 lanes of both gate, volt per octave, and a modulation for times 8. And MIDI in. So it works perfectly with the Polyend Sec, or anything else that is 8 tracks going into whatever ear rack you want, or anything that does CV in, like the System 1 or the Mini Brute, or anything else, most synthesizers. Anyway, so things have changed again, and I have changed my mind again. Polyend Sec, SEQ. But what has changed is that I've gone back to the fact that in real life, I'm going to have to be practical, and I'm going to be getting the Novation SL Mark III, which is a sequencer that's also a MIDI controller for your DAW too, if you want it to be. But really, I think that that's like the add-on feature, because that's just, that's just baked in information mostly that goes on in your computer. The sequencer part is like a circuit, only with 8 tracks. So that works for all of your synths and whatnot. So although the circuit has become really, really good, especially recently with the new update being you can put anything on any MIDI track and not just on certain MIDI tracks. But, also anything can be unquantized instead of it just being a quantized machine. It's an unquantized machine now, the circuit is, which is amazing. The SL Mark III isn't quite yet, but I'd imagine, if they ever wanted to, they could do that. But owning the circuit, as long as I have come to actually appreciate all the things that, playing live into the circuit could do, when what it did was put my notes into the groove that was going on, that I had a certain swing on the whole song, and whatnot. And it really does work, and it didn't make me feel inferior to be working that way. It just made me come out with cool stuff that I really liked. So yeah, so basically, but the main reasons are practical. Why I should get the SL Mark III before something that's more like a vanity sort of thing. It's more like just, if I got the Poly Sec, it would be just for me. It would be very selfish in comparison to the SL Mark III, which would work for my whole family, and especially my daughter, because she could learn scales and learn theory on it and do that very young. And even at the same time as I'm sitting here practicing and not knowing enough theory myself, and not remembering a lot of the scales myself, and definitely not being proficient on being able to just play them instantaneously when I want to, except for my favorite scales. So the SL Mark III, for its lighted keys, is and scales, is perfect for that. But the main thing for me in my studio that puts it above all the other sequencers is just the ease at which you can have 8 knobs be. You can have basically 8 automated lanes, 8 lanes of automation, 8 lanes of automated modulation per synth, per part. And then you've got 8 parts. So you've got your 8 synths. And for each one of your synthesizers, you can set up, for good even, templates, and all sorts of templates that you can just save and load, that have the knobs on the SL Mark III, and not just the knobs, but the sliders and buttons and everything as well, for mutes and volumes. It could be 8 LFOs per synthesizer. So if you have that in your rack, 8 LFOs per synth, 8 LFOs per voice, that's a lot of real estate. I mean, and what we're talking about here, when I say LFOs, because you usually put an LFO on something to automate it. And we're talking automation. And, automation is gold. So yeah, you can record automation with that, with the SL Mark III. I know you can do that with a lot of other sequencers, all sorts of other ways, but it just seems like the best. The third reason why I like it over all the other ones that are out right now, including the Force and all the other ones. Actually, I think the Force does have a clock out. But anyway, the SL Mark III has a just plain clock out, that you're not using a CV out gate from one of the lanes, but just a clock out. And my DFAM, that's what it needs the most, is just something that's just a dedicated clock, CV clock out to it, to go like it's going the same speed as everything else. And it doesn't have to worry about sequencing everything, and everything doesn't have to worry about sequencing it. Monotone. Yeah, it really is amazing. But if you don't have a circuit, you might not quite know what you're getting into in terms of trying to work with it. So you might get it and try to work with it and go like, oh man, I don't like this. And even if you have the circuit, you might do that, because if you look at other people, other YouTubers, like Bo Beats, for instance, who have checked it out, and have been using it. They made videos about it pretty soon, and their initial impressions are not all just like that. It's not the best. Him and Lupop have mentioned both that it's a sort of workflow that, yeah, it has its limitations because you can't see everything all the time. You have to go through pages still, and you have to do that with anything, but in the particular way it does it, you may or may not like it. It's its own thing, but it's very much like it's like the circuit only done sideways. So like everything's going this way instead of this way in terms of the parts. Synth 1, synth 2. So it's synth 1, synth 2, synth 3, synth 4, synth 5, 6, and they go this way in terms of the patterns. And then in each pattern, you've got your sequence. Did I have anything else to say? Okay, yeah. So that's going to happen. All right. Thanks for coming around. It was nice to have somebody here and not just be totally talking to myself. You're awesome. Take it easy. And I'll see you around. Yeah. And heck, that's all I wanted to say. Cheers to you, and cheers everyone who watched after the fact. And 1:17:28, I'm going to take off. And I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful one. And I'm going to go ahead and do some more techno and then end the stream. Just for a minute. Just relax.